If you're an experienced investor in the stock market, you now realize that this is a time where companies start announcing their dividends yield. Now, as an investor, maybe you're going through it looking for which stock to invest in to be able to earn dividends as these dividends are coming up. And when we say it on this show, you don't invest in a company just because of the name. You must see that they've made profits and they must be willing to actually share their profits to you as an investor. Welcome to Clockwise. My name is Providence. Today we'll be discussing 5 stocks that have consistently paid dividends and will also pay dividends going from now. And I don't do this alone like I do it every time. I have an analyst that stays on the chart. His job is to look at the fundamentals of these businesses and he sleeps on the charts looking at these businesses to see their profitability. Now, with a resounding virtual round of applause, welcome my guest, Mr. Kane. Welcome to Clockwise.
Thank you very much for having me.
The market is still going very well, as usual. I think we are having a breather now. Yes, the market is actually moving in a profitable direction. It's as if the bulls are doing very, very well. Now, as we always do, before we go into our conversation for today, now just take us through an overview of what the market is today.
Okay, so the market has been recovering from the 13 trillion naira loss that we recorded in the month of June. So we've seen a number of names. In fact, First Holdco has been the biggest gainer. First Holdco, incidentally, we had talked about First Holdco just 2 weeks ago when it was almost at a low of 52 naira per share. And I remember that day I also made a buy. I made it not just a buy recommendation, but I also made a buy myself. I added to my portfolio. I added a good chunk to my portfolio. And that investment, that is already up more than almost 35%.
Okay.
Just within 2 weeks. So that has been the biggest gain, and of course that's because of the insider buying that Otedola did, which by the way is the chairman of First Holdco. Now beyond that, you can see the sentiments, positive sentiments has returned to the market. There was a lot of overhang. There was that we identified. There was an overhang in terms of the First Holdco, the new regulation around holdcos, which actually affected directly First Holdco, Access Core, G2Co, you can name them. So that overhang seems to be muted because, like I had said in the previous podcast, I suspected that would have been priced in. Investors look ahead, they don't look backwards. So that would have been priced in. So that's why with that impending doom now be behind us. So that's why investors are beginning to rethink. And then, of course, you heard what Bloomberg said, describing Nigeria, the Nigerian stock market, as the fastest, I think the highest in terms of yield this year. So which was about 67% in US dollar terms. And then the South Korean market was 66%. So if you look at that, and I think that number is even widening now, because if you look at SK Hynix, if you look at Samsung, you still look at some of the biggest names in South Korea, they have actually corrected very seriously.
All right. No, I know.
So I think the NGX will be better. So essentially, the market is good, but I still have my fear too. Last Wednesday, that's 2 days ago, the market, the CBN came up with, through the DMO, came up with auctions. The fact that that auction was oversubscribed, the bank offered 1.4 trillion, but guess what? The bid was already over 2 trillion. Now, I know that it has a way of also increasing because when you have all of those people bidding that way, then it actually has a downward pressure on yields. So if that could be sustained and yields come down, then I believe that will favor equity markets. So that was my concern. But the kind of subscription I'm seeing shows that, for me, it means that investors are looking more. There's this appetite for fixed income. I don't know what I mean. Everybody knows that the month of August is usually not a very lackluster month. After the earnings, people literally, it's a lackluster month. not necessarily negative, but it's a lackluster month. A lot of people will go on holidays and all of that, so the market is almost always flat. But I'm concerned about the appetite for fixed income. Because what is actually invested in fixed income does not come from the heavens.
Yeah.
It means rotating from equity names to fixed income. So I'm very concerned.
Okay, now I know you actually do a lot of analysis, technical analysis. Now, can you tell us categorically if the bulls are back?
I believe the bulls are back. I believe the bulls are back. But the reason why you are not seeing such sharp increase because remember, people are still rotating out, like I told you, into the fixed income market. So the valuations are becoming very attractive. I mean, you look at the likes of like Zenith Bank. Zenith Bank is trading at less than. Zenith Bank is trading at less than 3. Price to earnings ratio for Zenith Bank is about 3.6.
Okay.
Look at how the single digit, not just single digit, but very low multiple. So, and then GTQ. So you see that some of these names that were priced high have now corrected. So investors believe that, especially the bulls, believe that these prices are very attractive. Yeah. If you look at Zenith Bank, a bank that is, has tentacles beyond Nigeria, trading at such an insanely low multiple, then that's a very attractive position. That shows you that the market is now very attractive for investors. Okay. But my concern is the fact that people are still really, this appetite for fixed income is what I'm really thinking about. A lot of investment came in, according to the reports we have, about $10 billion came in, and so surprisingly, over 90% of that went into the fixed income market. Okay. And I think only $139 million of 110 billion went into the fixed, into the equity market. So that to me is concerning.
Okay,
really.
okay. Now we'll start hearing earnings calls of certain companies from, let's say, from this week or next week. We'll start hearing it
from next week.
From next week. All right. Now let's see if you were to actually invest based on what you followed so far, year to date. Which are the companies, 5 of them, that you feel you actually invest in?
Thinking of this, there are some names that I would have want to put on this list. But the problem I have with those names is liquidity. I mean, it's liquidity.
Yeah, you cannot invest without.
Because I just got exposure to a REIT. That's a real investment trust. I'm not going to mention the name because, I mean, for obvious reasons. But I did buy this morning, and I bought it. I had to pay 10% higher.
Why?
Because of the liquidity. The price point I saw the price where my trade executed was 10% higher than that. So that's the issue with liquidity. You realize that when this happens, it becomes a bit challenging for me to mention some of those names. Because, I mean, we had when investors cannot enter and exit a position, it becomes a challenge. And the reason is because when institutional investors come in, then they would want to look at the trade with decent liquidity so that they can get in and get out. So whether we like it or not, we are all investors here. Yeah. And as an investor, you must have, I tell you, as a disciplined investor, you must have your exit plan before you click on that buy button. Yeah. If your exit plan cannot work because of poor liquidity, then I don't know why you're in that name. So the names I'm going to mention today are actually names that I know that they are not the highest in terms of dividend payments. By the way, just so you know, dividend payments, I know some people will think that, this name pays higher dividend. I'm not concerned about high dividends. I'm concerned about consistent dividend, because high dividend could actually be a sign of danger. If a company, I mean, I know that for sure. Some companies actually keep, instead of reinvesting their earnings into building the company, they actually keep it to pay dividends so that they will show that the company is healthy. Yeah. Do you understand? So that is exactly what happens. So don't chase after, these guys paid, their dividend yield was 90-something%. No, it's not important. Look at the fundamentals of the business. Beyond dividend payment, what is in terms of what is the earnings quality? What is the earnings growth? What is the cash flow? What is the balance sheet saying? There are a lot of other things you look at. What is the return on equity? Okay, maybe because you are talking about dividend portfolio, you might not consider that. But beyond that, I always like to, in as much as I'm earning something, but what am I earning? If for example, a company is selling for 10,000 naira and then they are paying you 100 naira as dividends, that's not very attractive if you ask me, because I rather would go into a company that is maybe 100 naira, paying me just 1 naira dividends or even 50 kobo dividends, but is growing at the return on equity is like over 40%. That's one of the things that made me to mention this one. So keeping that in mind, I'm looking at a name like GTCO. GTCO for me, of course, if you observe, anytime I want to talk about investment opportunities in Nigeria, I always look at the banks first. And the reason is because of it is very liquid. Banks are very liquid and quite regulated.
Yeah.
So that means that safety, because as an investor, I'll tell you, I am more concerned about capital preservation than capital appreciation. Your capital is your ticket to the market.
Yeah.
The day your capital disappears, you are no longer an investor.
Market, yeah.
Good. So you want to look at your capital first before you now look at what you get on top of that capital. So that's why I mentioned GTCO, as you already know, is in terms of the spread, in terms of the quality, the earnings quality, it is one of the biggest in Nigeria, in the entire Nigerian stock market. GTCO has also been consistent in paying dividends too. It's one of the two fogas that, in the last call, were actually declared intention of paying dividends based on their performance. But GTCO for me is also a very strategic play. Remember, what I'm saying now is if I want to build a 10-year dividend portfolio, I cannot mention a name that showed up yesterday and paid insane dividends, and then the management, corporate governance is zero, management, nothing at all. I mean, extremely shady. You don't know what. There's one, I don't want to mention the name, but that company, it paid very excellent dividends. But, we knew what happened to it. It fizzled out. So, investors could have been attracted to go in there, but it's actually a doomsday scenario. So, GTCO is a good name. I'm like more than 80% sure that GTCO will have a very good half-year H1 performance, and of course a very good quarter. If that happens, those are the ingredients. I don't think they have any. They are very careful. They are very disciplined. So I'm not sure they will have anything about impairment charge. If that doesn't happen, then that means GT is primed to pay dividends. This year. Okay. Then of course Zenith Bank is another name. Zenith Bank for me is it's still hovering around the 110. I think to this morning it just climbed to 114 naira 75 kobo. So, like I told you, I had said earlier that if Zenith Bank and GTCO will be one of the banks that will lead the recovery. They have been beaten to it by Facebook, but I think, of course, we know why Facebook actually ripped off. But in terms of speaking fundamentally, these are banks that not just, remember, Zenith Bank for me now is now not just a dividend play, but a growth place too. So Zenith Bank, because again, they have a very decent cash flow. They have when they talk about discipline in balance sheet and loan quality, Zenith Bank doesn't have any match in the entire Nigerian banking sector. So you want to lean into such names because the chance, like I've always said over and over again on this channel, if a company does not make money and pays dividends, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. That is not sustainable. Yeah. Good. So, but when a company is making a very decent cash flow, and it's trading at such a multiple as Zenith Bank, it's 114, but I want to tell you that it's trading at less than 4 times for 12-month trailing earnings. So that means that's an opportunity. So you are not just going in there as for value, you are going in there for dividend, and I'm very certain they will announce a very good return on equity. So Zenith Bank is the second one. Then I think those would be the two for banks. Then of course I would want to lean towards Airtel Africa. Airtel Africa, when we talk about telecoms, Airtel Africa is the number one. It's a very good one. I'm saying that because someone would talk about MTN. MTN Nigeria is good, but MTN Nigeria, remember, is predominantly Nigerian. So I always look at geopolitical risk, also. But Airtel Africa is all over the place, and so they are very resilient. Though Airtel Africa, to a very large extent, it has actually witnessed a very serious spike in the past. I think when did we cover Airtel the last time? I think about 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
Between that time, I think it was trading at around 2,000 something. Now it's already about almost 6,000, which is like a 3x on your money. And I mean, for those people who took the recommendation and got into the name, I think they should be sitting on some good profits. But that doesn't mean you cannot re-enter into Airtel. Airtel is like literally up and into the right. It's more like an Empire State Building. But for me, Airtel is, if you talk about a dividend portfolio, you want to look at. I remember when we talked about at 2,000 naira, people told us what? It's too expensive. I cannot go into that. Now you would have tripled your money, and you went and stuck on a name that I'm not going to mention the name, but you guys know what the name is. 4 naira. That was selling at 4 naira. No, this one is very cheap. You start at 4 naira. That name is still 4. I saw it this morning. It's 4 naira 11 cents. Sorry, 4 naira 11 kobo. So you have realized that over that period, you have just basically not made anything whatsoever.
You made 11 kobo.
So you have not made anything at all. Whereas you would have allocated to that name to Airtel, and then you would be sitting on some nice profit. So Airtel Africa for me is a name that I think would provide very, very decent return to investors. Because if you look at most especially the fact that data services, demand for data is skyrocketing.
Huge.
And by the way, remember, for most of these telecom names, they were operating for about 10 years. Yeah. There was nothing, they could not charge more because these tariffs are actually capped. But recently they got a tariff increase, and that allowed them to earn more without necessarily increasing their capex. Yeah. So that for me is the reason why I still believe MTN, even at this point at 820 something naira, is still 23 naira, is still highly, is still highly undervalued. Undervalued, yeah. So Airtel Africa is that name. Then the next one I would look out for would be Presco. Presco, because I mean, if you observe what has been happening, Presco is the behemoth when it comes to palm oil. I know Okumu is there, but Presco is.
Are they bigger than Okumu?
Well, we are talking about in terms of dividend payments and in terms of the return on equity. I am, in as much as I'm big on this conversation is around dividend stock. But again, like I've told you, if I can eat my, if I can have my cake and eat it, why shouldn't I do so? So I mean, you can actually bestride dividends and return on equity. And Presco has done very impressively this year, and I think they will continue. Half-year result, I expect it to be them to beat earnings, both top and bottom lines, for that. Then, of course, that is for agriculture. In fact, if I'm to own one name in the agricultural space, it would be Presco. Then, if I'm leaning again towards agriculture, I would look at Okumu. Okay. Then, of course, energy space. People would talk about. I mean, I have two very competing names, which would be Seplat and Aradel. I have talked about Aradel. Aradel for me is more of a growth play. Investment in Aradel. I bought Aradel a couple of weeks ago when it was at 1,200. I re-entered Aradel. When I'm buying Aradel at 1,200, I'm not buying because I'm expecting something to happen. No, I'm buying Aradel for the next 10 years but
it's a long-term play.
It's a long-term play. So it's more of a value play for me, a growth play for me. But when it comes to dividends, I will lean towards Seplat. And there is a reason why I'm doing that. It's because, remember, Seplat is more like a hedge against Naira depreciation because they pay in US dollars. Seplat's gas portfolio has become very, very robust. They have been, I think they are now on 50-50.
Yeah.
The price of gas, has it come down? It has not come down. So, I mean, while petroleum products, the price of PMS has come down, but gas has remained stubbornly high. So, there's one thing I think I like over Aradel. One of the challenges that made Aradel to really sink was their cost of revenue cost, as in their cost of production, the cost of making the money they made, was actually a kind of a bane on Arada, and that's why you saw that very massive sell-off. But beyond that, but Seplat doesn't have that challenge really. I know people will tell me Seplat is trading at over north of 11,000 naira, but it's the same argument I gave when we talked about Airtel Africa. Someone told me, how could you recommend a company? How could you recommend a company that is so expensive? 2,000 naira. If they are the average Nigerian, how much does he earn? 50,000. How much? Even if he took all of his salary to invest there, that would only buy him 25 Airtel. Today, if that person had invested, today we'll be sitting on 150,000 Airtel worth of shares. Yeah. So don't look at the number. Look at the other fundamentals behind it. Look at the fact that this company is going to pay in US dollars. Look at the fact that this company is going to grow in terms of. Look at. I'm not trying to, but look at Tony Lumelu's investment in supply is now worth over 680 billion. It's not worth over 680 billion. Look at such numbers, such insane amount, and it's going to continue to grow because once Dangote list, Dangote now provides. Dangote expands. That provides, and by the way, we're also having what is the name of these guys that are starting a refinery in Ekit? Yes, I think Boa Group. I think so. But the refinery there will provide. You are having two refineries, two giant modular refineries that will suck up oil production in Nigeria, or from Nigeria, and of course, Seplat is the biggest beneficiary. So, like I told, that would actually reduce Seplat's the cost in terms of risk cost or risk of moving products out of offshore, as well as cost of the logistic itself. So that's a good one for Seplat. So I think the earnings will continue to remain high. Their earnings growth will continue to remain high, and that would fuel consistent payments of dividends. So I think those names are names that you can actually
talked
consider.
about Zenith Bank,
GTCO, Zenith Bank, Airtel, Presco, and Seplat.
Now, if you were actually, you cannot go without answering this. If you're actually made to actually reallocate your resources to these, how will you actually distribute
Of course, 20% would go to Zenith Bank and 20%, in fact, for the banking sector, I would put in 50% actually.
Okay. Why?
So why? Because in terms of dividend payments, I expect the turnaround will favor banks more.
Okay.
I expect they will favor banks more. And if you look at in terms of dividend yield, I think GTCO is 11.6%. Zenith Bank is north of 10%. So in terms of dividend yield, they stand to perform very well. And then in terms of return on equity, I expect them to do more than the other names. I'll put like 25% into the two banks. Then I have 50% left. I will spread that 50% to Seplat, to Presco, and then for Airtel Africa. I would do definitely Seplat. I will do 20%.
Okay.
The remaining 30%, I will do 20% also in Airtel Africa, and then 10% for Presco.
All right.
That will help me to, number one, banking here is my behemoth. That's why I'm allocating 50% to them. When investors come into Nigeria, and by the way, just as a point of it, remember, if the debt management office goes through with this, with the timeline, with the calendar they have given for auctions, then that means the fixed income market will remain very attractive. Guess who makes money when fixed income market remains attractive? The banks. So I expect interest income to remain high. That will drive cash flow that will help to pay my dividends. So I am very certain that some of these two names will pay fatter dividends if this happens. So that's how. So 25 for GTCO and Zenith Bank, 20% for Airtel Africa, 20% for Seplat, and then 10% for Presco.
That's a nice one. That's a very good one. Thank you for coming. You've done a very great job today. We'll keep an eye on the on the chat and see what is going on, and also bring to the notice of our subscribers any changes. Thank you for coming. Now, on that note, we'll come to the end of today's episode of Clockwise. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and also put a notification bell on this channel because of the amazing content we bring. Now, if you want to join our community, we have a profile link. We have a community link on our profile. With our profile page, you see our community link, or you can actually go to Telegram and just type Clockwise by Netizens or Clockwise Podcast, and you actually see the group, and you can join from there and ask any question you want. You can also ask further questions on the comment section. We'll be here to respond to you. Now, do not forget to like and share this video because of the amazing content. My name is Providence, and I'll see you again.